EA Interviews, episode 211.
Inspiration, transformation, success stories, and the Imperfect Action Round. 7 days a week. Join Mario Ficini for today's Expert Authority Effect interview.
You're already successful and you have a great company, but how do you go from high net income to high net worth? What are some wealth building strategies to do this? It's a good question. And that's why I'm glad we have Christian Allen on the show today, founder and CEO of Money Insights, and we're going to be diving in deep right after we thank our sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christian Allen. Christian, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Mario. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here with you.
I can't wait for you to share your insights because I know you have a successful company and you're doing things that not everyone in the finance space is. So why don't you tell me, what are some of those alternative wealth building strategies that you implement that most people aren't doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So we're jumping right into it. I think it's so from my perspective, the financial planning industry as a whole is kind of broken, right? Like there's just so many problems with the strategies that have been used and they're kind of archaic. In fact, I want to throw out a stat for you. Is that okay? Before
Absolutely.
I jump into
Please
it?
do.
Okay. So according to the New York Times, 75% of Americans have less than $30,000 in their retirement accounts. This is crazy. And 4 out of 5 Americans will fail to meet all their financial needs in retirement. So the reason I point those things out is just because there is a problem out there. And I think the first part of it is just acknowledging that there's some challenges. So what we do at Money Insights is we teach people how to, like you talked about, move from high income to high net worth by integrating strategies that aren't as common, right? That we don't necessarily hear from Wall Street. And what we do is we help people move into the alternative space, at least somewhat. Now, I'm not one of those people that thinks like there's no value in a 401k or putting money in the market. I do that myself. However, if I'm a high income earner and I really want to take things to the next level, it's going to require that I kind of get outside of the mainstream and start looking at the alternative wealth building strategies that wealthy people have been using for generations. You know what I'll do? Maybe, in fact, one of those strategies that we often talk about is called the investment optimizer strategy.
Ooh.
And yeah, kind of interesting, right? And what we do inside of the investment optimizer strategy is we teach people how to make their investing more effective. So let's just say theoretically, I'm a cash flow investor. Maybe I invest in real estate or business or whatever, right? Those types of things that produce cash flow. Well, normally what people do is they just save money in their bank account, right? Like they save it up, get little to no interest, and then they take that money and decide they're going to go invest it. Well, what we're suggesting is that there's a powerful opportunity fund that's available, and the investment opportunity or the investment optimizer is exactly that. It's basically a turbocharged 5% tax-free savings account that's completely liquid.
Really? Do tell more.
Okay. So I'm going to use a swear word here that most people, or at least most people think is a swear word, right? Life insurance. It's like, who likes to, let's face it, there's nothing sexy about the word life insurance. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
So here's my thought on this. Most people can't get over the vehicle or the tools that are often used. So in this case, what happens is people talk about, should I buy whole life or should I buy term and invest the difference? Which, by the way, all of those have complete merit, right? What I'm suggesting, though, in this investment optimizer strategy is that in conjunction with my real estate investing, in conjunction with my other cash flow investing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this component where I can draw an interest rate continually. And what's really unique about it is that when I pull money from the policy or when I borrow against it, that money still sits there and earns interest. So I can literally create value in 2 places at the same time.
That
Is that
sounds
helpful? Is that helpful?
That's very helpful, and it sounds a lot better than the original alternatives.
Well, and it's a tool, Mario. That's, I think, the important thing. Like I don't love life insurance. Well, I shouldn't say that. Life insurance is important for a lot of reasons, and it's incredibly valuable for its pure kind of focal point, right? A death benefit. However, what I've learned is that as people continue to gain wealth, utilizing life insurance as a tool, not as the end result, as a tool, ends up providing people one of the most high impact vehicles that you can buy, kind of hands down. I always tell people, if you're a high income earner, you should love life insurance. I do, and I use it like crazy. Certainly I'm biased. However, again, the important thing here.
But you're also intelligent.
I don't know about that. That's questionable, Mario, but I like to think I have a few gems here and there that come out.
Well, I mean, there's nothing. Everyone's biased in some way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, if you have the bias, it's probably because you have a lot of experience or expertise in an area, and you're probably not going to budge on it, which is all the better.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I have hundreds, maybe thousands of clients across the United States because we were kind of on the front edge in the financial services industry of doing things digitally, doing things online. And so I've got which was, by the way, a big deal in that industry because it's just like moves super slow. It's a dinosaur industry. But what happened is we were able to get a lot of really great clients, a lot of them that are very high income. For example, so I have a lot of physicians that are clients all across the United States. And what I've learned in working with a lot of these high income and especially the ones that have moved to high net worth is that they're doing things different than the average person, right? They're not just throwing money into 401ks and IRAs and hoping the market will do the rest. Like they're just more intentional. And so what Money Insights is designed to do is help people create and build on an intentional route to build wealth so it's happening on our terms.
You don't want to just be throwing mud against the wall hoping something sticks and look back a decade later and go, oh, we should try something different.
My experience is a lot of people do that. And then when they get to us, they say things like, oh, gosh, I wish I would have found that. I wish I would have known about these strategies a decade ago or 20 years ago. And a lot of it is just getting past conventional wisdom, which, can be a really hard thing for people.
So how many of these are tools that people don't have access to unless you're at a certain point versus how much of it is it just changing and reframing your mindset to go, I can see how all this is more advantageous? Man,
that is a fantastic and thoughtful question.
Thank you.
So we as a firm generally do work primarily with accredited investors, right? And really what that means is people that, if you're filing singly, then it would be $200,000 of income, and jointly it's $300,000. The other alternative is $1 million of net worth outside of your primary residence. So that,
and you're talking about as far as the SEC defines accredited investor, right?
Yes, you got it. Yep, that's exactly right. And so what happens is that there's this whole world of opportunities and investments that exists out there that has well, again, real estate would be a prime example of this, right? Syndications would be a prime example of this. They're things that once I become accredited, I suddenly have access to. And what's really wild is just that I think we're so inundated with what we get on, the news and TV and those kind of things that we're just missing some of those key features that we can get just by moving into things that are maybe a little less known. So what we're going to do is show people how to utilize things like the Investment Optimizer together with business investing, real estate investing. It could be, and it's important to have balance, right? So anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but hopefully that gives a little bit of insight.
No, it really does. And, there's people who want to build an aggressive portfolio, and then there's people who want to play it more conservative. One might be safer, but the other one's quicker.
That's an interesting thought. So most people,
or at least that's what we're led to believe. I have a feeling you're going to spin this on your ear and Tell me the real story behind it, because
Yeah, you're a step ahead of me, Mario. So I think that what you're saying is right, and yet, if we'll just look at the canvas for what it is, it's really easy to see things very different. And so what we want to do then is utilize the combination of conventional wisdom with some of the powerful compounding effects that we can get inside the alternative space. And one other thought here: most people aren't aware of this idea of risk-adjusted return. So I'm just going to describe it briefly. Basically, it is the combination or the balance between the risk we're taking versus the return we're going to get. And one thing, when we look across the board, every investment has some sort of risk-adjusted return. Here's what's crazy. The risk-adjusted return inside of the alternative space is oftentimes better than what we get in less aggressive things or in things like traditional market-based accounts. So the key then is to, again, take the alternative assets and combine them with the things that are more traditional. And by doing that, that's what's actually going to take us to the next level.
Is there any certain order you should be doing these in? If someone comes to you right now and says, I want to do your whole suite of everything available, is there an order that they should start with one over the other and roll them out once a month over the course of a year, or can you do everything in 30 days?
Yeah, great question. It takes a little bit more time to build up. Now, so the starting point is to build the opportunity fund, right? So where that opportunity fund has been currently, we need to make that more effective. So that's the first part. We have to make sure we're building money that we can then go out and invest. The next step is to start to locate the opportunities that we want to take advantage of. So, we have people who are interested in precious metals or oil and gas. And I mean, real estate is the most common thing. But what we're going to do on the second step, we're going to fund the policy first, get the investment optimizer working. Again, it's basically just turned into this turbocharged kind of 5% tax-free vehicle that we can move money in and out of. So now we've got the money in the policy. We've started to define what is that we're looking at from an investment perspective, and it doesn't matter what it is. So to answer your question, the investment optimizer, it just works for everybody because it regardless of what type of investing you're doing, it's going to bring the ground floor up. So let me throw out an example. Let's just say that let's say that I had a goal to put an opportunity fund out there at $100,000 a year, and I'm going to do that for 5 years, right?
Okay.
We put together an example a numerical example that shows exactly what that would look like over time. So what we did then is we said, okay, based on various assumptions, we're going to plan on a cash flow real estate deal. If I were to put that money in there, I build up the $500,000, but I invest in a new property or project every 5 years. And what we found is that by doing that alone, I can generate another $1.2 million in cash just by running my investments through the investment optimizer rather than just using like a bank account. So that's, I think, fantastic for everybody, the first step.
Yeah, once you have that strong foundation, you're saying, what I'm hearing is you can start with the real estate and then maybe you go to gold, then you go to oil, then you go to whatever. But you have that base, which is continuing to grow.
Yep. So the base of the opportunity fund working for us, the investment optimizer, and starting to get into the alternative space. And then once I've done that, I can start to look at some of the other strategies that we offer. So another example that we use is we call it the retirement accelerator. And it's just a really cool way to add leverage to retirement planning. So this is an interesting concept. So most people wouldn't even invest in real estate without leverage. Is that fair to say, Mario?
That's fair.
So what's really ironic, though, is that when we get into the kind of traditional planning space, there's not many opportunities for leverage. And the reason is because most people don't know how. There's, that the access isn't there. So what the Retirement Accelerator does is it combines retirement planning and leverage in a conservative way, so that when I put money into it, I'm actually contributing a portion, but then I have a bank contributing a portion as well. So now, as an example, let's say I'm putting $50,000 in. I put $50,000 in for 5 years. The bank's going to put in $50,000 for 5 years. They're going to match it, and then on the next 5 years, the bank's going to cover the whole $100,000. So at the end of the 10 years, I would have put in my $250,000. They would have put in $750,000, and we're then going to utilize the leverage and the arbitrage that we can create to create massively more retirement income. And I can promise you the numbers are just so much better than what people are seeing by hoping to get 6 to 7% in their 401k.
Well, that's one thing I've always loved about time compounding is when you have that first mover advantage and do it early on, everything you're doing, even with podcasting. I've advised a lot of people since I've started my show, and they're asking what I'm doing. I go, pretend the first 365 days is like this cannon you're going to be shooting off, and you can, as high up as you can get it, wherever you're at that 365 days, that's going to dictate your next 10 years. And I'm hearing a lot of the same stuff in here because it's like the more you can do early on, I mean, like you said, 250 NU, 750 from the bank. What if it's 80? What if it's 100? What if it's 200? It's only going to make that gap wider.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and it's the time value of money, right? So anytime we can start using powerful strategies early on, that's just going to have a multiple impact because of that time value of money. And here's the thing, what you described there, Mario, is just that we're using proven principles. So what we want to use is principles like leverage, velocity, and cash flow to build wealth. And then we want to combine that with the right strategy and vehicle and the time value of money. And suddenly by doing those things together, we create this cool orchestra, which is what helps build us and brings us to this moving from high income to high net worth situation.
Well, clearly you know what you're talking about, and I appreciate you for sharing it. I want to ask you, how did you get into it?
That is thanks for asking that question. I appreciate answering it any chance I get, because I got into the industry first because when I was 18 years old, my dad passed away from pancreatic cancer.
I'm sorry to
hear. I shouldn't say that he was diagnosed when I was 18, and he passed away a year later. Thank you, by the way. And it left my mom and my family in a little bit of a difficult situation. Now, he was smart, like they were smart, and they planned and they had the right tools in place. But what ended up happening was that my mom, who is a widow, at the 49-year-old widow, ends up being taken advantage of by people that she should have been able to trust, and ends up throwing a lot of money away that was important and necessary for her. Right. So what I saw there was just I got interested in the industry first, in the numbers, but more importantly, I thought this is just not the way this is supposed to happen. And I wanted to come in and do it better. And I think we've done a good job of doing that.
So I can relate not to that, but I lost my dad in 2017. And it really does give you a different perspective on everything. And it sounds like...
And that's so recent.
Yeah. And it changes everything. And
sure.
I was older than 18, but I mean, 18's pretty young if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a tough time, right? And I had a younger brother at that time who was only 7. And so, I had I was lucky to have more time with him, but yeah, it's a hard thing. And it really did shape the way I thought about how I wanted to perform and do the work that I'm doing now.
And what I'm hearing also is it's laying the mission side of things for you too. You're not just doing this to go, yeah, I made another 12% this year or another 15%. I mean, you're doing that, and I'm sure might be even higher than that. Numbers aside, you have a deeper meaning as to why you're doing all this.
Yeah, I feel like there's been kind of two major turning points, right? So there was first when getting into the industry, just because of some people who were kind of dishonest and didn't do the right thing. And then there was kind of the second stage for me, which was I got into the industry, but more in the traditional world, right? So I keep talking about this traditional versus alternative stuff. And what I can tell you is that when I got into the industry, I had every intention of doing it the more traditional way. And so I primarily helped people in managed assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. We focused on asset allocation and diversification and rebalancing, all of those things that were important. And yet, as I kind of, over a few years, I just realized that it wasn't really doing anything that was super impactful for people, right? Like, the only thing that was making me different at the time was whether, what my advice was as far as the actual underlying investments. And the reality is none of us can pick stocks, right? Or at least we shouldn't. My experience and most people's experience is that trying to time and pick things is usually just not a recipe for success. And I certainly wasn't going to do that with other people's money. And so what happened was I just found I had a mentor that kind of came into my life that taught me some, that was very, very successful. And it kind of helped me get on this track. And again, at the same time I was doing that, the wealthier clients that I had were almost always investing in the alternative space in real estate and businesses.
So you noticed the pattern in what they were doing versus everyone else?
Absolutely. And it's significant, right? Like, there's that old, I don't know if it's true, but my experience says it's probably accurate. And that is that real estate's created more millionaires than any other industry. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not going to stick my name by that. But what I will say is that my personal experience is that that's 100% true.
How would you say oil, gas, and the commodities such as gold stack up against? I'm sure real estate is the biggest, but what would you say is the order of the next three?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like you said, we get the baseline things in place first, most often. And then when we get to those other investments, those underlying the things like oil and gas, those are oftentimes going to be like as much a tax play as they are an investment play. In other words, I want to get the benefit of the depreciation that comes with owning oil and gas. So what we'll normally do is create that kind of baseline, and then we'll have a percentage of our money that is kind of earmarked for things that are maybe a little bit more aggressive and maybe have a little like the risk adjusted return is a little bit the other direction. So in other words, we'll absolutely use those. We'll usually use those after we've kind of worked in the primary things: real estate, business, life insurance.
Okay.
Yeah,
and as far as the gold?
Oh, gold. Okay, sorry, I forgot that one. So for some people, they just love to have it immediately, right? So depending on your view, if you're ultra conservative and you're worried about the world blowing up soon, then gold is, I shouldn't say that. I think gold is great to have at any level. But what we get is a lot of people who are really, concerned about the economy and what's going to happen. And they like to so there are people who we work with that kind of take that gold and stick it to the top. But most often we'll get into precious metals. We'll talk about those as options after we've focused on those other things.
Okay.
Yeah,
and the world's
question.
not going to blow up this year. It's going to be next year. So
next year. Okay. Well,
I got an email.
Mark it down.
I got
Mario
an email
said it
earlier on that. So we're good for a little bit.
Okay. I've got it down. Do you know the date?
That's coming in the next email.
All right. That sounds good.
So I want to ask you about your biggest transformation and success story you've been able to give to a client that before they were working with you and after they were working with you, because clearly you know what you're talking about, but what's one of the biggest success stories you have from someone that's hired you?
One of my favorite things that often happens is people start businesses with the investment optimizer as their opportunity fund. So there's a physician in actually he was a dentist in Oklahoma. He moves to Florida. He buys a massive pedal boat and starts running a pedal boat business off the coast in Florida and is doing great with it, right? So my favorite stories are those situations like that where people are doing cool things. Like in his situation, he retired from his dental practice, sold it, and then utilizing some of the concepts and strategies that we put in place, he goes off and creates so now what he has is he has this business that he's built using the investment optimizer, and he has a retirement income strategy that's simultaneously working with it. And so doing something like that really worked and has made for a smooth transition for him.
That's excellent. I love hearing entrepreneurial stories because there's so many people out there that want to start a business, but they're just afraid to, or they don't want to lose the stability they think they have with the job or this or that. Or unfortunately, they wait till, it's never too late. Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was like 66 or 76 or whatever. So it's never too late. But the reality is, like we were talking about with the time compounding, if you got a 40-year advantage, that's probably going to work in your favor unless... you could pretty much screw up 99% over 40 years and still come out ahead just because of the time, in my experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I started Money Insights 15 years ago. Well, I shouldn't say that. I started in the industry about 17 years ago and officially formed Money Insights in 2015. But I was already doing a lot of the things I was doing here. So I'm huge into entrepreneurship, and I have another business, a local business, it's actually a massage. It's a day spa, and we do like massage and facial. So, to your point, I'm 37 years old, and I'm really grateful that I got started in the entrepreneurial world early because it's given me an opportunity to kind of have time and financial freedom at a young age. And again, this has been created not by just putting money in IRAs and 401ks. Like I've had to be a lot more intentional and actually build a businesses. So I love entrepreneurship. I'm totally with you, Mario.
I can relate 100%. Started my first business at 12 and this one when I was 18. And that was a couple years ago. So anytime I hear it was part of the motivation for the show was just like, I know there's so many good people out there and I want to highlight them. There's frankly so much negative in the news 24/7 all year, regardless of the year, and it's like there's so many success stories out there that I just felt I was privy to them because they were my author clients and private coaching clients. And, I found them in the audiences when I was speaking, and it was like, there's all these cool people I know, but the world might not. I'm like, I got to change this. So thank you for your success and thank you for sharing, because the world needs more of what, we're doing. I believe the whole reason I started the show was to exponentially elevate the identity of humanity. Anytime I see something that's, my favorite thing to do now is watch movies and TV shows and stuff. I'm like, that person's really cool. And then, figure out, okay, how are we going to get them on the show? Because now there's this platform to do so, where before it's like, wow, good for them. And you might never meet them. So all the good people in the world, stay in touch with them, and let's change it as far as I'm concerned.
That's good advice. That's really good advice. Can I throw in an action item for us?
Please do.
So I like to leave every interview with an action item, and I'm really excited about this. So a couple things. One, we recently created a concept that we call the Financial Freedom Factor Score. Now that's kind of a long name. We just went for F3.
It's a good name.
Okay, and we're gonna consolidate it though. It's F3 score, right? So what we did is we created an assessment that's basically like a 15-question quiz, and what we'll do is we'll build it. It will pump out a score, and the idea there is to determine how far along this path from going from high income to high net worth one actually is. And so it's a really cool concept. We're super excited about it. So my action item is go to moneyinsights.net. Yes, that is .net, not .com. Nothing I can do about that. But moneyinsights.net, and click on the button that says Financial Freedom Factor Assessment and see where you're at. Like, that's going to be the coolest thing. Like, we work with the exclusive group. If you fit our group of accredited investors, high income earners, like that could work. But even if you don't, go check out the Financial Freedom Factor. It'll be incredibly valuable as a way to determine where you're at and give you a roadmap to see, okay, if I want to get to this place, what are the things that I'm doing well now, and maybe what do I need to do moving forward to get there?
And I appreciate you for making that available to Expert Authority World, because there's so many people that, straight up when I started my business, I wasn't in the position that I am now, any sense of it. And it's like you start somewhere. It's one of the reasons I created my first book, because I was like, I didn't even have the $20 for a new book, but I was buying them up like crazy on Amazon for, $2.99 for shipping at the time and a penny for the book. But I was like, you know what? You can go from here to there and from here to there and just keep building your way up. And I think it's really great you have that available, because the reality is not everyone is going to qualify for an accredited investor, but it doesn't right now, but that doesn't mean they can't be in the near future as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and we want to make sure, like, this isn't about, being, too good for anybody. It's not about that. It's that some of the things that we do require to be accredited. But like you said, it's super important that we figure out where we're at and that we have a goal in mind to build toward. And so we want to make it available to anybody who wants to jump in and take the assessment, and we'll help at least give you an idea of where you're at. And that way you can kind of, take those next steps and get there.
Yeah, without the baseline, you don't know where you're going. So appreciate you for sharing that. It's time for the Wheel of Whatever before we thank our sponsor and go to the Imperfect Action Round. But I have a great question for you, and you're going to love it.
Uh-oh, I'm nervous.
Uh-oh. Spin a little bit more. Come on, I need to get that stand. Here we go. Look at that. That's a good one. It's not going to stop until I do this, because I need to stand for it.
I see.
The show's a work in progress, but the question is,
okay,
what would you advise we do, and what would it take to get the country out of the national debt?
Oh man, yeah, that is a good question.
Just a softball one I came up with.
So we have trillions of dollars of debt, right? And the national spending is at a massive deficit. So, I'm not even sure on this. Can I give two trains of thought on this?
Feel free.
One is that I
thought you were going to ask if you could ask the audience or phone a friend.
Now I'd probably get a better answer that way. So maybe I should do that. Can I do that?
I've never done it, but if you want to call someone and see why not?
All right. Well, how about next time we'll try to cue that one up. So I have two thoughts on this. I'm not an economist, right? And my planning strategies basically try to the extent possible, mitigate all of those, some of the volatility factors that exist in the general economy. But here's a couple of thoughts. One is that we really, if you believe in like Austrian economics, you really want to get the budget balanced as quickly as possible. But there's another train of thought that's really interesting, and that is that maybe we need to use the money maybe we need to take some of that massive debt that we're using and borrowing anyway, the money we're printing, and maybe we should start investing that into things that give us a chance to be more prolific as a country going forward. Because one of the things that's been interesting is that we have more competition, especially in the technology space, from some of especially in Asia, right? So anyway, I was listening to an economist, Richard Duncan, recently, and he had a very different philosophy, and it was very intriguing. So maybe I'll leave that answer to the economists, but those are at least a couple ideas.
Hey, appreciate your feedback. All I ever ask for from the VIP guest is honesty. And
I can give that.
That's a fun place to have a little bit of fun, because I never know what's going to happen. It's a risk for me too, and I'm like, hey, let's see what happens. It's my show. I'm not going to yell at anyone. I'm the one who asked it. So we're going to thank our sponsor and come back for the Imperfect Action Round. You've heard me say every business needs a book, including yours. And it's true. And that's why you should visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Take it from a few of my authors, like Lori.
And I went from having an idea and a possibility to actually getting my book published.
Or Catherine.
Thank you for making my mom #1 best-selling author.
Or Mary Alice.
What he got done for me in 3 days regarding my book launch, unmanageable.
John Cody.
I've worked with Mario over the phone and online, and he's been very helpful in getting me where I needed to go with promoting my books.
Rocio.
There's no way in the world I would have been able to do this with somebody else. Again, I've attempted it in the past. It didn't serve me. As a matter of fact, I ended up more frustrated than anything. So this has been a very seamless process.
Adele.
If you're looking for an amazing business coach, I highly recommend Mario Ficini.
Or Bill Benner.
I can't make a higher recommendation than to work with Mario Ficini. He has been great for me, and right now I won't work with anybody else except for Mario.
Hey, their words, not mine. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com to get started now, and I look forward to hearing your transformation as the next video success story. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. And we are back with the Imperfect Action Round. Christian, are you ready to take imperfect action?
I am ready. Let's do this.
All right. 3 questions, rapid fire. Answer, 60 seconds or less. What is the fastest path to the cash?
The fastest path to the cash. I'm going to go with real estate investing. I just think it's the simplest way to quickly build cash and build net worth. So I'm going to go with real estate. Well, actually, I'm going to take that back now. I want to go with business. Starting a business is the fastest way to cash. Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm wondering if I allow audibles like that.
I hope so, because I definitely need an audible out of that. Starting a business.
Let's see if they're allowed
100%.
today.
Uh-oh.
They are.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank goodness.
All right. Number 2. What is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
The biggest problem that people make in general is following too closely with conventional wisdom. And that's the most limiting factor to people building wealth. Hands down, it's not even close. So the way to change that is, well, we've heard that if you want to change the way you are and what you are, then you have to change what goes into your mind. And the first part is to become educated, to read, to study, understand what really makes people wealthy.
Excellent. Number 3, what is the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
Customer lifetime. I think I understand the question, but I think the best way to do it is to just have a great relationship, right? To build relationships. So I'm really proud of our reviews, for example, and we have this educational process that's really focused on being, let's put it this way, we're anti-salesy, right? Like we have to provide an opportunity for people to implement things, but I think the best way to do it is to create great relationships, to treat people how you want to be treated, and my personal philosophy is never make someone feel uncomfortable.
Excellent. Well, I want to ask you just a couple more things, and one of them is regarding books. What are some books you could recommend to Expert Authority World? Okay, so my favorite, well, I shouldn't say my favorite book, but one book that I really love that kind of gave me a new perspective on things, or at least it touched me in my soul, right? And that is The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. He has two of them, The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver Sells More. Both of them were just really, they like hit me at the core, because the philosophy is about working and doing for other people. And my belief is that when you focus on other people, it just comes back around anyway. So you might as well do it. Great recommendations. Well, I know you mentioned it earlier, but why don't you say it again? Where would you like people to go to learn more about you? Yes, moneyinsights.net. It's funny because sometimes when I'm typing in my email, I still will type in insights.com.
but it is moneyinsights.net, and take the F3 assessment. And I think it'll be super worthwhile. We'll give you a score, and it'll give you an idea of where you want to go, or where you're at, so you know where you want to go.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
This has been my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. God bless. You're already the expert, but have you transformed your expertise into a tangible asset that will generate and qualify leads while increasing profit for you 24/7? And if so, how well are you promoting it? With the Expert Authority Effect publishing method, it's easier and faster than ever. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com to get started now. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I sure did. If you haven't done so already, I invite you to subscribe to the show. And also be sure to check out eainterviews.com for complete show notes, the full interview video experience, links to the resources we mentioned, and more. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you tomorrow.